All right, boys. So Graham Potter in at Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel's out. Christian Pulisic, I don't know if he's pulling the strings to make that happen, but the guy definitely needs to get some more playing time. And there's a lot of talk about just how good Christian Pulisic is. So midweek during the Champions League coverage, Thierry Henry and Jamie Carragher with our very own Clint Dempsey in the middle of it, a little Clint Dempsey sandwich. They talked about Christian Pulisic, and here were their thoughts on what he's doing and where he stands and what he should be trying to do to get out of his current situation. Let's take a listen.
I think he's good enough to play for Chelsea. I think he's been there a few years now. I think he's had enough opportunities. I don't think a new manager is going to completely rejuvenate him and he's going to be playing week in, week out. I just think he's a squad player at Chelsea, no matter who the manager is.
But with the time that he's been given in the games, I still think it's comparable to some of those other guys that are in there in terms of chances that are created. He's also scored some big goals for them, especially in the Real Madrid game, the semifinal that after that win gets them to the final. I know that, talking with y'all, you say maybe he's not good enough, but he's still a young player and still has a lot to prove, and it doesn't mean that he still can't go on to another level.
What was the hashtag, sorry?
Free Pulisic.
He has to free himself. You have to come and deliver at one point. It's about you also, what you bring on the table. You can be the best chef in the world, and if the guy doesn't put anything on the table, what are you going to cook? If I put you an egg, you cook an egg. You will never show that you're the best chef the
It's
best
an
chef.
interesting analogy.
Don't Thierry Henry, not Eric Cantona.
No.
Gordon Ramsay over here.
But look, it's
Don't
always...
you get involved in food. We had enough of that last night.
No, but it's always about the coach. It's always about help him and help that. Can you bring something on the table for me to cook? Can he be about himself? Free yourself. Whether you stay or you leave, can you perform? That's about it.
So I get what Thierry's trying to say, and I don't know if I want to agree with what Jamie Carragher is just calling him a squad player, because I think that when Christian Pulisic gets those run of games, he's proven that he can be somebody they can trust in their attack to consistently deliver with some type of goal contribution, whether it's the hockey assist, the assist itself, or the goal. Charlie, as a resident number 9, and no disrespect to you, Heath, as a resident left back, but let's talk about Pulisic's just overall, and then obviously what these guys had to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, you could say Christian hasn't delivered and done this when he's coming in as a substitute. But then you'd say, who on Chelsea has? And they always say Mason Mount this and Mason Mount that. I keep going back to this. Christian is better than Mason Mount when they're both in their prime, fit and in form. I would take Christian all day, every day, because I think he gives you more. Mm-hmm. And so for whatever reason, Thomas Tuchel said, you're going to be my fall guy. So if things aren't going right, you're the first one to come off. And, it might not be Christian's fault, but injuries have really played a role in taking him out of form and then having to reset. And then at Chelsea, you have to earn your way back, because typically when you're playing at a big club, as soon as you come off the pitch and you give another player an opportunity, that player is not letting it go. And in a lot of cases, that young player or that player who's been kind of waiting for that chance, they take it and then they just end up, they're never coming out. So then I think for Christian, he decided to say, you know what? Well, Mason Mount's my guy there now, and you're always going to be the substitute. Then they brought in Raheem Sterling. That was the sign for me. They even went after Anthony at Everton. Yeah. So Anthony Gordon at Everton. So for me, Thomas Tuchel was over. And there's nothing you could do to change the manager's mind once he goes that direction. And so when Graham Potter comes in, it's not, all of a sudden I'm going to play Christian every single time. But you have an opportunity to really change his
clean
mindset.
Slate. You have a bit of a clean slate to get after it. But to Thierry's point, Heath, there was clearly something that either Pulisic was embodying behind the scenes. Maybe he wasn't training well. Maybe he's just not being someone who's a positive add to the changing room, locker room at that point. So I get what Thierry's saying, but also it just felt like in comparison, other players got more trust and a longer leash from Tuchel. And that's what I think was the most frustrating. If he comes in and gets 3 straight games for Graham Potter and sucks, I think we're all going to be like, all right, fair play. You gave him 3 games. But if you're only going to give him 10, 15 minutes of garbage time when the team's already not playing well and he's still trying to do what he can to try to salvage those minutes, that feels pretty harsh, I think, in some ways in terms of how Jamie Carragher is viewing a Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, I think there was
it was kind of the perfect storm in a lot of ways. They signed a bunch of players that were in their early 20s as attackers that were going to have the inconsistency of a number of players in their early 20s, right? So Christian Pulisic got chances. He went on runs. There was some competition for positions. Over time, he became what I think is one of the scapegoats for Thomas Tuchel. And then, as Charlie mentioned, Thomas Tuchel eventually made a decision on him. Now that resets. The hard part is that Graham Potter's inheriting a new team, and he's going to look at, if I give you a run, what can you make? If I give you 10 minutes, what can you do for me, right? Before you come knocking on my door, you're going to get your fair chance. Now, fair chance doesn't mean start me 10 games in a row at Chelsea, because if he does that and doesn't get the results, Graham Potter's going to be out the door. So he's going to put out the team that he thinks is going to get him the results that keep them in a place or near a European position, which fits within their scheduling. What were you going to say, Charlie?
I was going to say, I think it just works out better for Christian Pulisic when you have Aubameyang as a 9 instead of Havertz, because Kai Havertz isn't a 9 either. He was taking up positions that Christian would usually flow into. So you have a withdrawn 9, essentially.
Yeah.
How did that benefit Christian? Where now you have Pierre Aubameyang, who's going to be making runs in behind, stretching back lines, creating that space underneath where Christian typically thrives. So if you have Sterling on one side and then Christian Pulisic on the other with a striker like Aubameyang who's constantly making runs in behind, I think that plays to his advantage. So,
what do you think? Do you think Pulisic's going to play on the right side? Because you're not moving Sterling.
No, and I think he can play on the right side because that's the only place he can play. He's not going to play striker, and he's not going to play where Sterling.
Well, this is what I mean is that, like, there might be Pulisic might be a victim of Thomas Tuchel moving on and bringing in players that I think are actually better than Christian Pulisic in that position. Raheem Sterling is better than Christian Pulisic.
No one's doubting that.
Yeah.
No one's,
so
no
that
one's
position
argue that either.
is gone. Aubameyang is going to take it. You could have had Raheem Sterling as a false 9 if you wanted to, but you've got Aubameyang now, right? So now you've got a position where Pulisic needs to play, and
it's Mount or him. It's Mount, him, Havertz. 3 players for one position. And you could move
Ziyech,
Mason Mount into
Ziyech too.
I still think Christian's better than Ziyech, but if you put Mason Mount in the midfield as like an attacking 8 or 10, and you keep
he has been playing at times,
and you keep Christian on the wing with Sterling, that for me would be the best way for Chelsea to move forward, and it plays right into what would essentially get the best out of Christian. So
I hope that Greg's calling Graham Potter right now to tell him all this stuff.
Yeah, me too.
So Brian McBride already did.
What's interesting? That's right, Brian McBride. What's interesting is that because of the cancellation of the Premier League games this weekend, they're saying it might be canceled next weekend as well because of the funeral and all the security that's going to have to be around that particular event. They might not have enough security at all the stadiums around the country. That the Graham Potter might only have one game with Chelsea before this international break. And that's a lot of training time. And for him, from a coaching perspective, that's great, right? You get to kind of implement your thing without the pressure of having to perform, and you get like a nice little flow. It's almost a proper preseason here for Graham Potter. So that's interesting. And I wonder how Christian is going to fit into that. So a big opportunity for him, and we'll have to wait and see how it goes. I hope that he makes Jamie Carragher eat his words by scoring against England in the World Cup. That would be goddamn sweet. And I would continue to roll that clip and send it to Jamie Carragher for every single day until he called it soccer instead of football.